Annie, here we go. We're going to start our series off here with Handout 4.6. So in order to get to the handout, I want you to go to Neo. I want you to go to our class, 2019-20 Period 1 Academy U.S. History and English with Miss Ruiz and myself. I want you to go down to number 5, which actually says Unit 4 because it's the 4th unit in history, but Unit 5, and How Do You Fight Injustice is the title. And I want you to go to checkpoint 3. When you go to checkpoint 3, I want you to open up handout 4.6. In order to get credit for this project, you have to finish handouts 4.6, 4.7, and 4.8. It's going to essentially go through an entire inquiry cycle with you. You're going to be starting out in 4.6, choosing a topic and developing a research question, a higher level thinking question on a specific topic. And then in 4.7, you're going to find some credible sources that you're going to help answer your question. And then in 4.8, you're going to read through your sources and you're going to answer your question. So 4.6 is figuring out what the heck you're asking. 4.7 is finding the answer. And 4.8 is eventually, or actually, I guess 4.7 is more finding resources that might give you the answer, and 4.8 is actually finding the answers to your question. So that's how this goes. And for this video, we're just going to look at handout 4.6. So once you open it up, it's going to look something like this. So what the directions essentially tell you to do is, for the first part, for part 1, you're simply going to look through these basic topics, and within these major topics, kind of some of these major people and events, and you're going to choose one of the major topics. So you're either going to choose Chicano-Hispanic, LGBTQ+, women's liberation, or American Indians. All of these are civil rights movements. Before we went on quarantine, we were studying the African American civil rights movement, how leaders like Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X began to fight against the injustice against African Americans in the United States during the 1950s, 60s, and then into the 70s. What you are going to be researching is one of the other civil rights movements that came either at the same time or after the African American civil rights movement. So again, you're going to choose one of these big topics, so one of them from the left-hand column. Then what I want you to do is, once you've chosen one of your big topics, I want you to just take some time looking up some of the major people and events. And once you've chosen a major topic, I then want you to choose between 2 and 3 major people and events that you might be interested in. Right? This is, again, you're not meant to become an expert on these things. You're just meant to look up some Wikipedia articles, maybe watch a video or two, spend like 5 or 10 minutes just researching the major people and events and just figuring out, oh, maybe this is something I would like to look at. So, for example, if you were to choose one, say you were going to choose the women's liberation movement, I'm going to ask you to highlight that. So you just go to highlight color, highlight in yellow, and then you kind of find 2 or 3 of these things that might really interest you. So, for example, Betty Friedan and Gloria Steinem might be 2 feminist leaders who were fighting for women's rights in the 1970s especially, and you might really want to look into how those women impacted the women's liberation movement. So, and then you might also look into Billie Jean King as your 3rd person, and it might be what methods did women use? So this is an example of just choosing a topic. Again, you're choosing one of the bigger topics and then 2 or 3 of the subtopics, and you're only doing that for one of the big topics. So I'm just going to unhighlight those because this is what everybody else is doing. Once you've chosen your topic, you then need to go to part 2, which is developing a research question. One of the major skills or habits of mind that we're studying in this unit is inquiry. And inquiry means asking a question. But when you inquire, you don't just want to ask simple questions. It's not, what was women's liberation? You want to ask a question that's going to really lead to more higher level investigation, something that's going to really work your mind and make you think. What this is practice for when you go to college and your professors are going to ask you to do research papers. And if you don't understand how to choose a topic for that and how to develop a research question, well, then you're going to struggle through the research process. And so this is kind of your high school practice, very preliminary introduction into research. So after you've chosen your topic, you're going to create a higher level thinking question on your topic that you are then going to answer. When you're thinking about historical questions, historical inquiries often begins with action words that are higher level, like how or why or to what extent. Notice, other than the to what extent, it's not just a simple what or who. It's a question that's going to take a little bit more. It's a word that's going to require a little bit more explanation than just one sentence. So I want you to start your question with one of these three things. Questions are always going to include a specific time, place, and topic. Well, you already know a time because it's going to be the 20th century in the United States. You already know a place because it's the United States. And the topic is exactly what you had started looking up here. So, for example, our example was women's liberation. So your topic would have been women's liberation, and then those three women that you perhaps wanted to look into. And then you also want to think about, with your question, after you have your how or why and your specific time, place, and topic, is kind of what's the historical thinking skill you want to do? Are you looking for determining changes over time, like things that have shifted? Are you comparing two places or people? So for example, in this one, are you going to compare the methods of Betty Friedan and Gloria Steinem? How are they similar? How are they different? Or are you going to look at kind of a cause and effect relationship between events? How did the actions of these women, perhaps you might be looking at, what impacted these, or how did these women impact the women's liberation movement? So that's just an example of higher level thinking skills. Here are some sample questions that I put there for you just to look over so that you know kind of how these questions should look. So once you've figured out your question, I want you to just write it here. I want you to write down your question. Again, your question should look like one of these, but they cannot be one of these. So do not simply copy and paste one of these into your topic, into your question here. So I'm just going to go with question number 1. So when you write your question, I want you to just send me this document. So hit share and share your copy of 4.6 with me, and then I'll approve your question. I'll give you feedback on it, and then you're ready to go on to 4.7. So that's 4.6. Again, just a brief overview. You're going to be choosing one of these topics and 2 or 3 of these major people events that fit within this topic that you might want to research. And then you're then going to create a research question that combines all of those things, that is a higher level, has a higher level action word, includes a specific time, place, and topic, has one of these thinking patterns, and that kind of is modeled after one of these. So once you're done, hit share with me. I'll look it over, give you feedback, and then you're ready for 4.7. All right, hope you found this helpful, Danny. Let me know if you have questions.